Good morning, everybody. Welcome to what is part 2 of our Contact for iPECS Cloud webinar mini-series. So I am, unfortunately for everybody, the suave, sophisticated, elegant Mr. Ed Savoury is not around today to present, so you've got me as your host with the most. I'll do my best. Joined once again by Steve, who is the UK Head of Sales for Dactella, and Mr. Graham Bunting, the UK Partner Channel Manager for Dactella. So without further ado, let's jump in. But I think before we kind of get into the detail of what we wanted to talk about today, I just wanted to take a few slides to talk around a bit of a recap, I guess, and a summary of where we was at last time, so that we can sort of lead into the main part of today's presentation. So if you all sort of cast your minds back, I think Ed did a great job last time in terms of presenting the sort of the overall portfolio. And I think it's important. Yes, we've got the guys here from Dactella today. We're talking about Contact, but I think it's important to just reiterate the fact that if you look at the portfolio that's available to you today, it's really all around the ability for you to be able to say yes to more opportunities. And I think from the sort of core
Andy,
cloud. Yeah.
Sorry, are you sharing your screen yet?
Oh, sorry. See, this is why I apologise for Ed not being here, because you get rookie mistakes like that being made by me. So just bear with me a second. Hopefully everybody can see that now.
We can indeed.
We can indeed.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have to multitask, you see. So what was I say? So yeah, this is all about being able to say yes to more opportunities. And like I say, from the core cloud platform, which underpins everything, which in my opinion, and I think it's certainly something shared by the rest of the team here, is that it's never been in a stronger position. And then you sort of add onto that the bits and pieces that sit around it. So, we've got like iPECS 1, we've got our own analytics product, iPECS Analytics. We've got PCI products that we can add to the solution. We've got our own mobile product to be able to extend iPECS Cloud out to mobile workers. And then we've got our recent additions of Connect and Engage. But obviously the main thrust of the day is to talk around Contact in a bit more detail. So this slide here, I think probably a majority of people on this call, in fact, probably all of us would much rather all of the customers sit on the left-hand side of this particular slide, where those customers come to us, they know what they want, they know what they're looking for, and they tell you exactly what they need. I think the reality sits far more to the right-hand side of this screen, where those customers don't necessarily know the technology they need. And I think particularly when we're talking around the customer experience environment, this we were talking last time on the webinar about the fact that traditionally contact center it was a siloed product, a lot of specialisms around it, and it was seen as the remit of the big large organizations. Whereas now, and I think Graham, Steve, we saw this almost immediately with one of our first deployments, didn't we, on Contact? We've got a small electrical retailer, which if you just look at them and you assess them according to traditional view of contact center, you would have immediately said, absolutely not. They're not the right size, not the right profile. But through the right questioning and understanding that customer, we very quickly understood that they actually do require a lot of the technology that's available, albeit they might not be considered a traditional contact center, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think the theme we're going to continue today really is we're going to look at the product in more detail. Steve's going to take us through that, but it's still all around getting to know your customer, and I think one of the bits that the guys did really well in the last session, which I want to sort of touch on again here, is sort of seeing this as almost 3 pillars when we're looking at the technology that we can deploy. in terms of the benefits that we derive. And I think there's three very key areas here. So there is the your customer's customer. How are they benefiting from this technology? What can we do to make their experience better, smoother, simpler, easier to contact the business? And then we've got the people that are handling those interactions, making those calls, dealing with those emails, looking at the web chats. How easy is this to deploy? How easy is it for those users to get their heads around this technology? And how does it improve their experiences as employees? And then sort of sitting behind that, we've got the business benefits. What does this technology do in terms of overall efficiencies around the business? How do we improve processes? How do we make the whole kind of customer interaction, the customer services piece slicker and ultimately derive more value into the business? I say we, myself and Graham, and actually a lot of other people, but in terms of people on this call presenting, Graham and I were at the Cavell Summit the other day, and I think there was some great information there, but the stats and the Cavell information particularly stood out for us. And I think if you look at we can cover a significant range of employees, but I think if you look at where we've sort of traditionally seen the core of opportunities in and around that sort of 0 to 250 employee mark, it's great for us to see that the sort of the priorities of the customers they've surveyed really align to what we were talking about in the previous webinar, what we'll continue to sort of underline here. And it's all about having the right technology to be able to help these businesses reduce the costs, provide better service to their customers, and making it easy for their employees, not only in terms of adopting the technology, but I think we're all very well aware of the fact since COVID that we're all working in very different ways. You hear people talking about hybrid working all the time. So we also need to take into account the ability to keep enabling that within the technology that we deliver. So, this is good for us because it kind of underlines where we're coming from with this particular technology. And finally, sort of on this part, just to sort of reiterate the summary that Ed talked about last time. So I guess kind of see this as our sort of 5 key bullets in terms of trying to deliver, a successful solution to customers. But and I'm probably preaching to I hope I'm preaching to the converted in the majority of cases here. But I think, through conversations with partners and customers, it's really clear that one of the most important things we have to do is research these customers before we go to see them, understand what their business is, who they're selling to, what do they do, how many sites do they have, as much information as we can get. We're talking to these customers, just ask questions. It's not about the technology that we've got straight off the bat. What do they do? What are their pain points? How are they trying to interact with their customers? How do their customers want to interact with them? Because they'll have a say in this as well. And that allows us then to, from our point of view, but also working with those customers to identify the solutions that we can deliver to them. It enables us to attach far more value. And I think ultimately this is about being able to help you deliver higher value from the sales opportunities that you're encountering. And I think don't lose sight of the fact that by going through these other steps, really getting under the skin of what the customer does and getting to know them, it's about sticky customers. And I know Ed touched this last time, but if we do the right job and we deliver the right solution, they're going to stay with us for a while to come. So moving forward into what we're going to touch on today, you don't worry, you've only got me for a couple more slides and then I'll hand over to the proper experts. But I think another point that Ed touched on last time was about this multi-channel versus omni-channel, and just to sort of underline the fact, what we're talking about with Contact is what we would refer to as a true omni-channel product. And a key stat here, I don't need to read it out to you, but you can see the fact that if businesses are implementing omni-channel contact center, it does help drive this customer retention, which is significantly important. And it's the benefits of the omni versus multi. It's, we're fully integrated, everything's within, our environment, under our control, and, delivering the benefits we've just talked about. And then finally, I think, one of the key reasons really, I think Ed talked about this last time, but we went through a significant period as Pragma of really looking long and hard at who was available out there for us to partner with in terms of contact center technology. And we smile and talk about our beauty parade that we ran, but I think that Graham, Steve, and the guys, that there was many reasons behind why we partnered with Dactella. But I think if you boil it down to the product particularly, this whole kind of concept of having a single window from a customer services point of view, Ed already touched on last time. We've got all these different channels that we can make available. The great thing about Dactella is you don't have to have everything from day one, which is what we've seen in a number of competitive products, which helps us to, where we need to, work to a budget. We've obviously got the what I think would be the standard expectations really these days around voice and email, but obviously the ability there to be able to deliver Teams, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and I know Steve's going to talk about some really exciting sort of more future looking technology towards the end of today's presentation as well. So yeah, I just wanted to refresh that. But I think handing over now to Steve, I think we did a video yesterday which the audience here is going to be able to have a look at hopefully in the next few days, Steve. But one of the things we sort of talked about was customer experience, but I think you wanted to start today with talking around the user experience, which I think is really important when it comes to the technology that we can deploy for agents.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Andy. I mean, that's a great introduction. I mean, although I'm not sure expert is the right term to describe myself and Graham, we'll try our level best, to be frank and honest. Reiterating what Andy said is that any solution we provide, looks at these three kind of elements of the triangle. It is ultimately it's the customer's view that's important, but actually the business objectives and the business view is really important. And I think one of the key things I wanted to first talk about here was the user experience. I mean, the user experience can actually kill any implementation, because if you get the users on board, the chances of you having a successful employee engagement are greatly enhanced. There's the old adage that happy users make happy customers, or happy employees make happy customers. And that's really true. We're all the same. If we enjoy doing what we're doing and we've got the skills and we've got the tools to do our job, we actually enjoy it more. And the fact we enjoy it more means that actually the people we're dealing with probably get the best of us. So I think it's very important that we make sure that the user experience is very much a good one. And this really starts on the premise that not all users are the same. Within our technology and with the technology within iPECS, it's all about different types of users, and it starts very much with how the users access the system. There'll be some users who are used to a plain ordinary IP handset, or there are people who want to access the GUI that we provide that allows to get full access to the range of facilities, or they may be a mobile user. And that the idea is that it doesn't matter what device they use to connect, it's got to be the right device for them, but it all links into the same platform. And that enables us, for example, to see what everybody else is doing on the system. As an internal communication system, it's vital that I know what one of my team is doing, or Andy knows what one of his team is doing, and you know what one of your team is doing. And therefore, presence is a very important factor in this. Each person knowing if they're going to transfer a call, for example, to somebody, that person is available to take the call, irrespective of what device they're on. So I think the device is very, very important. But if we move forward to looking at, I guess, the GUI part of it, which is the login to the system, our system is internet-based. So simply put, if you can get on the internet, you can get onto the system with the appropriate password security. So once you're on the system, again, following this theme about getting the user to feel as though they're part of it, you start from the point they log in. We've got a couple of examples here where you customize the login in the way that the customer wants to see it. So, I'm logging into JetFlight, so I'm a JetFlight's employee. So it makes me feel as though I'm logging into my system. I'm not logging into some disparate technology that's disconnected from my business. So straight into the login is important. And then when you actually do log into the system, if you're using the full power of the system and you're going through the GUI, you can see a desktop that actually is fit for you. So the next slide will actually show you logging into the system and actually bringing up a desktop. And the desktop, again, is vitally important because do you know what? You don't want every single user to have the same access. You could do if that's the way you want to work it, but more often than not, different users have different skill sets. So if you've got somebody who's brilliant on phone calls, then they'll log in to deal with phone calls. If you've got somebody who can do everything, phone calls, emails, web chat, WhatsApp, the whole lot, then you'll give them all of that functionality. But the beautiful thing about what we're proposing here and what we provide here is you, the customer, and your customer decides what access they give to the individuals who work within their organization. So it's following the theme again. Give people who are using the system the tools they need to do their bit of the job. And that's why you can customize the dashboard to reflect exactly what an individual user will want. And we've got an example here of a standard dashboard. But if you move forward, Andy, to the next slide, you'll see, for example, once we get into the dashboard, we start segmenting it. And the reason why we do that is because, weirdly enough, probably 90 odd % of businesses in the UK still use primarily voice, email, and web chat for their customer communication. So, let's get the basics right first. Our system does everything you probably want to do from a voice, email, and web chat point of view. You've got the ability to actually link it into our integrated ticketing and CRM system, so you can start tracking all these activities within one specific part of the system, which is the CRM and the ticket system. It allows you to make calls from within that, so you can identify people and call them directly from their entry in the ticketing system and make a phone call or send an email or engage them in whatever way you want. So the beauty of the way the system is created, not only do we customize it for the user, we actually customize it to give the best to the customer experience. So the user now is logging into an account, they're getting that account information for that customer, and they're phoning that particular customer. And all that is tracked through the system, irrespective of whether you use voice, email, or web chat. Now, as I said, most organizations in the UK generally use these three as their core communication tools. However, it's fair to say, if you move forward, Andy, that the world is changing, and the world is changing in the sense that more and more people are getting more involved in web chat, using much more of the web chat facilities. And the most important point you'll see from what we're looking at here, again, going back to the user experience, is that the screen looks similar. Whether they're doing a phone call, whether they're doing an email, whether they're doing a web chat, the actual look and feel of the screen is the same. So you don't have to get users to suddenly start conceptualizing, oh, I'm going to do a web chat, I've got to do it differently. The basic premise about how the system works is the same across all channels. And web chat is a classic case of this, where more and more organizations are using web chat and allowing people to reach inbound to their people to engage with them. We're also seeing a lot more interest in WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is something, again, you can see that we've created a WhatsApp application within our system that allows you to easily communicate over WhatsApp from, again, within the same desktop. So you can add to that various other things that people are now getting more and more involved in. Social media, for example, is becoming much more relevant. Facebook, Instagram, SMS is also another area that's becoming more and more important. And what we're looking to do is that, building on the basic principles of how we provide an effective tool for the user, we just layer on top of that this additional functionality, all within the same system, all within the same screen, as relevant for that specific user. Again, all linked to making sure the user knows how to use the system, how to get the best from the system. I think one of the things I've focused on there is that the inbound capabilities of the system, but I wanted to just pose a question to Graham to touch on. It's not all about inbound, it's about the outbound proactive contact. So I wondered, Graham, if you could just add a few points on that as well.
Absolutely, thanks, Steve. I guess, when we're talking about sort of customer engagement, there's clearly a two-way opportunity here. And as well as the sophisticated inbound capability that Steve just overviewed for us, there's some very sophisticated outbound capabilities, including some of the really simple things that you would expect, which is what happens when we miss calls. Well, one of the things we can do with missed calls is we can automate that callback capability so that the missed caller goes into a queue, and as soon as an agent's free, the call can be returned. So those things, even at a basic level, are very useful capabilities. But from a very more focused outbound capability, the system is a dialer. So we can automate the dialing into preview or predictive type dialing, where there's an algorithm that maximizes the opportunity for call connections. We use some very sophisticated, I'm going to be slightly naughty here and mention AI. We use some very sophisticated treatments to be able to do things like answer machine detection, so we can increase the connection rate so that callers or your employees get better quality connections or higher success rates. And there's something in the system that we call robocaller or agentless caller, which I quite frankly think is probably undersold, in the sense that there's lots and lots of really interesting use cases for automated outbound dialing. So, for example, things like automated cash collection, with the ability to call somebody, remind them that the payment's due. And again, something really clever we do here is the ability for the caller to interact with the robocaller to then come back as a call to an agent. So a cash collection is a good example. If you can't pay, press 1 and it comes back into the system. And the other really good use case, I think, is things around appointments. We all know there are certain markets where appointments are costly, and missed appointments cost the businesses or the organizations a lot of money. So the ability to ring people, advise them that they have, or remind them they have an appointment, and then to select an option should they not be able to make the appointment. So I think those kind of use cases are incredibly powerful, and again, they're agentless. So the system can make as many or as few calls as you wish.
Yeah,
Andy.
Thanks for that, Graham. I think we just wanted to touch on that as, let's not just wait for the customer to contact us. Let's balance it by, there are occasions where we can use outbound proactive contact through various different tools, such as SMS, such as email, such as voice, to actually engage with the customer. Why wait for them to phone you? You can phone them if it's appropriate. I think that the next thing we wanted to move on to is that if we've looked at this from the user perspective, we now want to look at it from the business perspective, because again, going back to what Andy said, which is very pertinent, the business has its own objectives. Yes, it wants the employees engaged. Yes, it wants a level of customer satisfaction. And these are all underpinned by what is the business trying to achieve. Now, I've talked there, and Graham's added to it, about having one common platform across the whole business. Well, the important thing is, if you're going to adopt one common platform across the whole business, you need the management information and the statistical information that is associated with what happens within that system to make sure you manage it effectively. And one of the key points of what we do is we look at the management information from a number of different levels. The one here, for example, we're looking at is individual user levels, or individual statistics. And we can even extend this to the individual users themselves. So, for example, if you set targets for people, they can measure how they're performing against targets by looking at their own individual performance. So individual stats, both in real time as how they're doing at that moment, and historical stats is very, very important. You link that into some of the QA tools that we have built into the system, quality assurance, to enable the business to say, right, how effective, it's great that this person is doing X number of emails and Y number of WhatsApp engagements, but how good are they at doing it? So having the ability to do that is very, very important, and measure that is very important from a business level. And again, we'll touch on a bit later some of the AI capabilities that will have enhanced that even further. In addition to providing the individual users, so you get them on board, it's important to look at teams. Most organizations run in departments or teams, and they're not individual silos. So it's important sometimes to look at how is a specific team performing. If it's a sales team, how are they performing? If it's a customer service team, how are they performing against the service level objectives that you set for them? So it's very important that you measure this on a regular and a historical basis to make sure you get the most from your team as well as the individual. And then finally, we look at one level above that. We look at that the entire business. So the entire business needs statistical information that's relevant for that business to say how is it performing, if it's revenue generation or its sales levels or its customer satisfaction surveys. All of this information you can bring into the system and use historically to actually manage the system more and more effectively. And I think one of the key things that we touch on here is that this management information doesn't have to be one size fits all. You have the ability to cut and dice it so that one person, like the finance director might want one particular report, whereas the business owner might want one, or the IT manager might want one. And the ability to segment this data and create bespoke reports is very, very important, because there's no point providing a general report that doesn't fit each person's requirements. So let's have reports that can actually be customized for individual requirements. And again, that's part and parcel of the system. So we're giving the business the tools it needs to manage the performance of the individuals and the teams within it. So if we move forward a little bit, Andy, we find that when we're implementing a solution nowadays, the vast majority of times we're integrating with something else that already exists. And there's just a simple selection of some of the more common ones that are on the screen here, but literally there is no end to the number of connections that we can accommodate. We have an open API capability within the system, which allows customers who use the system, they don't have to rip and replace what they've already invested in. What they do is they layer our system and connect our system and integrate our system with what they've already used and they're already comfortable with and they've already invested in, primarily to get more value out of the investment they've made. And that's a very, very important point. And I'm going to ask Graham to talk about one of the ones that's particularly relevant at the moment, which is, I guess, Microsoft Teams. Graham, if you want to add some thoughts into that.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So I guess to Steve's point, I don't think there are many conversations we have with customers where there isn't some level of integration required. At a sort of common level, some of the more common integrations are the CRM solutions that are in play. Things like HubSpot, and one of our great reference customers, Pragma, use it in that way in their support team. But to Steve's point about Microsoft Teams, I think Microsoft certainly dominate the desktop environment. I don't think any of us would disagree with that. And Teams has really become part and parcel of everybody's everyday life, whether that's on your desktop or your mobile device. And we've worked, as you'd be unsurprised to hear, to create a neat integration with Microsoft Teams. So whatever device you're using, whether it is your desktop or your mobile, we can embrace Teams and embed our contact center solution into Teams such that the users become part of the contact center. So we're contact center enabling the users within that Microsoft world. And of course, that doesn't mean that everybody has to have that capability. Is often the way Microsoft Teams can exist or frequently exists in that back office environment, whereas the contact center, and I think Andy said this right at the outset, it's typically been seen quite siloed. But I think more and more we're seeing businesses embracing an integrated approach. So it's about appropriate level of integration for the users. So yes, if you're a customer-facing, customer-focused type of employee, and you're embracing Teams as an organization, you can happily embed your contact for iPECS Cloud into that environment.
Yeah, I don't think unless Andy, there's anything you want to add before I move on.
No, not at all. I think, I would echo everything you guys have said about, there's very few opportunities we get involved in today where there isn't some level of integration, whether it be a bespoke, one-off database or something that somebody's got, through to, the products we were looking at on there. And I think, again, I talked about the reasons why we ended up working with you guys. And I think, clearly the sort of integration side of it was something that you were all over and had, a significant library already available, which was hugely important to us.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments there. As I say, and both Andy and Graham have already said, it's increasingly common that we integrate with something, be it a CRM, be it an EPOS system, be it anything that's out there. We would integrate to. I think we talked at the very beginning about the whole triangle approach, if you like, to looking at the view of the customer, the view of the user, and the view of the business. And what we've tried to articulate in the last few slides is how important the user's view of the world is, and how the user, having an effective user employee experience, has a direct relation to the customer experience. I've also talked about how the business itself is using management information that we provide is able to manage its own performance metrics to make sure it's moving in the right direction in line with its own objectives. And really, if we get these two right, then the whole idea is that the customer experience is enhanced. So by definition, although we've not specifically looked at things that say, okay, this is the customer experience, getting the other two parts of the triangle correct means that you're more likely to get the third part of the triangle correct, which is, hey, guess what? We've got happy customers. We've got a business that's moving in the right direction, is delivering what customers want, and all of a sudden we've got happy customers. There's having said that, the journey doesn't stop there, because we're all aware that the world is to a certain extent changing, and there's a really nice marketing slide that was put together here, which we've coined as the icing on top of the cake, which is AI, or artificial intelligence. So it would be remiss of us not to touch on AI within this presentation, although to be fair, AI in itself is probably a much broader topic, which was something we're going to explore in later webinars in relation to AI. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that there are artificial intelligence tools that are built into the system, and these are, I guess, in three distinct areas. There are AI tools that allow for automation. These are things like chatbots and voice bots, where actually you become 24/7 in your operation, and you don't necessarily need human involvement. They can be, separated from human involvement, but always have the option for somebody to go and talk to a human being if they're part of that. But you've got that automation capability. You also have AI tools that actually help the human resource do what they're doing. So things like rewriting emails, things like checking spelling in emails, things like translating emails as part of an AI tool. It's part and parcel of AI helping the agent deliver that better customer experience, and being how can I put this, happier in what they do, again, going back to that. And then there's the third part, which is, again, linking into the business in itself, how AI can help the business. And there are tools that, again, we're going to talk about in later webinars, about things like sentiment analysis, which allows you to determine, okay, we've done all of this, but now let's use AI to say, is the customer experience actually good? Let's take the customer experience and use AI to analyze it to say, actually, yes, we're getting it right, or we're not getting it right. Let's change direction. And that's where AI starts being a way of helping you measure the business performance as well. So I think that really sets the scene for maybe a later webinar where, as I say, the topic is much more in depth. But I guess from that point of view, I was going to pass back to Andy. But before I do that, I just wanted to touch on one classic example of, you may be familiar with in your day-to-day life today. This is a classic example of a chatbot, an intelligent chatbot. But this is an intelligent chatbot that is working interactively with the end customer. This one is, for example, just booking a flight. Where do you want to go to? And the AI tool is actually asking the person where they want to go to, when they want to go to, and it's allowing people, if they want at 2 o'clock in the morning after they've come back from the pub, for example, and they want to book a flight to go out somewhere, guess what? They can do it. They don't have to wait till 9 o'clock Monday morning to be able to do that. They can interact with an intelligent chatbot to ask all the information they want and book their flight, which means that you as a business all of a sudden are 24/7 operational. So that's a classic case of using AI effectively as an automated tool. So I guess from the point of view, what we've tried to do in the last half hour is to give you a very high level view about what the product capabilities are, but more importantly, how they link into what the customer's objectives are and how we tie together these three elements of the user, the customer, and the business. So I guess
Thanks,
I'll pass back to Andy.
Thanks, Steve. I think a nice way to sort of tie that section together is sort of the summary, really. And I think the way I look at this is, first off, and most importantly for us, as you well know, Steve and Graham, was making sure we had a product that was fully integrated to our cloud platform. You know, there was that was non-negotiable. It had to feel like it was a complete, you know, seamless element of the platform. And I think probably between the three of us, but certainly between myself and Graham, we're pretty bored about talking around AI over the last 3 days. But I think you can't get away from the fact that it's here. It's been implemented today, and it's only going to become a far bigger part of everything we do, not just in contact. And I think, you know, we were talking yesterday, we're already deploying AI into some of the other elements across our portfolio as well. But I think the way I kind of look at it, really, from what we've talked about, is yes, it's here today, but I think the point is that we are kind of almost future-proofing the customer's deployment today, because we've got all those tools. We're constantly developing those tools, and they're just going to get better in the future. And, you know, we touched on this a short while ago, but the product we have is a true omni-channel product. You know, we are in complete control of all of the channels that we are deploying. There's no third parties involved in this. It's our product. We work with you guys. You develop it. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated, the power of that. And I think what you've done, Steve, over the sort of slides we've looked at, is really help. And as you say, at a high level, but even so, I think it's important that we've been able to show people how customizable and flexible the product is. You know, how do you want to work? How do you want to service your customers? We'll tailor the product according to you, which again is about adoption there as well for me, because customers are not having to necessarily change the way that they work dramatically. Of course, there's always going to be some education and learning, but we can help ease that part of it by having such a customizable product. And I think, you know, this is borne out in the first few opportunities that we've been involved in, and certainly the initial deployments. It's a hugely scalable product, which aligns to the underlying cloud platform. You know, on the cloud platform, we've got, you know, traditionally small customers, you know, sort of 2-3 users, right through to, you know, a couple of thousand of users. And again, part of the selection process and understanding what we wanted as a contact center product was making sure we could have something that would align with that scalability as well. So yeah, I think ticks the boxes for me, but then I'm biased. So and then sort of finally, just to finish off, really. So we've obviously done the contact webinars now. There's some video information and content available. One that's not on here is the video that myself, Steve, and Graham pulled together yesterday, with just a few more thoughts around customer experience and AI, where we're at today, where we're going in the future. And the recording of last webinar and this one will be available soon. So I think that leads us to this slide. And this is where we may be able to bring Helen back into the fray. Helen, do we have any questions that need to be answered?
We don't currently.
Oh, wow.
If anyone has got a burning question, if they want to pop it in the chat or the Q&A, we can wait a few minutes just in case.
Absolutely.
So just a couple of things I noted down here, Andy, which are probably worth just reiterating. The platform is incredibly flexible in terms of licensing as per requirements. I know there's a number of systems in the market where there's a single license, so we can give each and every individual user whatever licensing they require. So if it's just telephony,
Yeah.
that's fine. If it's the whole 9 yards, it's the whole 9 yards. So that's a per user type of licensing. I think it's important to illustrate that.
Yeah,
The second thing,
absolutely. Yeah. So I was just going to add to that. I think the
yeah,
fact
go
that
for it. Yeah,
you know, we have the other end of that spectrum as well, because we do have the bundle packages available on the platform as well, right? So we can tailor it.
absolutely.
You can take what you need, or if it's a full-on, full fat version, it's we have an easy to consume bundle license as well. So sorry, jumping in on you there.
No, that's fine. And the second thing, which is probably going to be of interest to everybody, is there's a ton of tools and collateral that Helen and Nicola and the team have been creating to help support customer engagement, down to little 2-minute videos where people might say, well, what does WhatsApp for Business look like? Just things that help support that early engagement with the customer. So a ton of tools, loads of stuff in the works. And they all help support those customer engagement opportunities.
Thanks, Graham.
There's a question.
Yeah. So around the slides. So we will be making the recording available. Helen, I don't know whether we have a facility set up at the moment to be able to email the actual slides, but I'm sure we can look to make something available at some point, right?
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up out to everybody, and we will put a copy of the slides with the video on the hub.
Cool.
We'll share a link to where to find them afterwards. Yeah.
Well, let's hope that's the most difficult question that we're going to get asked. And I think, Steve, we don't have anything confirmed yet, but I think that you alluded to it. We're probably going to have a chat and talk about maybe a follow-up, maybe part 3. The Return of the Jedi or something, in terms of the AI side of the product, and maybe do something specific around that.
Yeah, I think it was interesting from the first webinar that we held on this topic, the number of, or the level of interest that was where questions were coming in about AI. And that's probably what prompted us to think, well, maybe we should do a specific topic on AI, because there are AI tools. And at the moment, everybody thinks, oh, AI, we must deploy AI. And necessarily, it's very dangerous to do that without truly understanding how it fits into that triangle.
Yeah,
it has to form part of the whole interaction. And I think it's important that we share our thoughts on artificial intelligence and its use in the customer experience model.
Yeah, agreed. So no more questions. I think what I would say is, reach out to your account managers. I think looking at some of the names, most of the people here have probably got contact details for me anyway, but if anything comes up, following this, feel free to reach out to us, ask us any questions. But I think if there is nothing more coming in, then it's probably
there is another question.
Sorry. Is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Does this use its own website chatbot, or can it work with others?
That's one for Steve, isn't it?
Yeah, it can. The benefit we see of using chatbot, within our solution is the reporting side of it. Obviously, because it's part and parcel of our platform, web chat or chatbot, whichever, they're all integrated with our solution. Therefore, we can get reports on what's happening on that. When you use a third-party element, it's more complicated and not as easy to do the reporting side of it within our standard reports. So, yes, it is possible, but there are benefits which we'd love to show you about why you would potentially move to using the integrated solution.
Thanks, Dave. Any more for him? Cool. Okay. Well, I'd say let's close it there then, and give people a few minutes back. Thanks to everybody for taking time out of what is undoubtedly going to be a busy day for all of us. Thanks to Graham and Steve once again for joining me. If everybody can keep an eye out on our YouTube channel for the video that Steve, Graham and I pulled together yesterday, hopefully a bit more information and a bit more guidance around the product and the opportunity. But for now, thanks to everybody, and hopefully catch you on part 3 for AI.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you.
Cheers all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.